think you switched it with Natalie. Natalie had trouble with her chair.
Oh, but I'll be switching it again if I sit there. Six. 5:59. You got all this coming. Okay. All right, we'll call the June 14th, 2021 Committee of the Whole to order. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Burton,
Here.
Fleury,
Present.
Frank. Here. Freeman will be absent. McGee,
Here.
Mulhall. Here. Porter,
Here.
Prather. Here. Snow,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
9 present.
Okay, thank you. Under public comment, we have Richard Wainwright. Richard, can you come up here to the podium, please? How are you tonight?
Good, thank
Good.
you. My name is Richard Wainwright from Belvedere. My little chat tonight is about the infamous S-curve on Chrysler Drive. I have maps that show what I'm going to be talking about. It has to do with the fact that the weeds have not been cut over there. They were getting so tall that 4 years ago, I was coming home at night and I almost hit 2 kids on bikes because they couldn't ride on the sidewalk. So the next morning I rode my bike over there. I found out why. The weeds were 4 feet tall, vines and branches were covering the sidewalk. The branches were hanging down. So I went home, got irritated, tried to find out who owned it, couldn't find anybody. Didn't find anybody who wanted to take responsibility for it. I tried the city, the county, private corporations around here. Nobody wanted to own it. So I loaded up my little push mower and went over and started taking care of it. It took me 12 hours a week for 3 weeks to get the sidewalk passable. And that was with about a 2 foot on each side of the sidewalk, cleared of weeds and vines, etc. Also, by the time I took care of the extra dirt that was there, the sidewalk grew in most places by 18 inches. So, being the bad personality I am, I continued to take care of it. And I kept widening it until pretty soon I had the whole south side from the houses that were, the subdivision that was there just east of the bridge, up to the townhouses. I had cleared all that. Even found 2 fire hydrants over there, along with a couple of stanchions for different facilities. I continued to take care of it. The north side didn't get taken care of until I talked to Alderman Stevens, and he finally got somebody over there to cut it. It's a safety hazard, mainly. It's an aesthetic problem, tremendously. People use the sidewalk now. They walk, push their kids in strollers, do tons of stuff. The branches are trimmed back. There's still dead wood there that I haven't taken care of. I would like, my solution is, the area would benefit from more regular mowing. I was thinking three times a year. Now, month and a half from now, and a month and a half after that. And it would really benefit from more lighting, so that people could feel more comfortable when they were walking. The trash that I have picked up has exceeded 8 or 9 bags. One other thing that I'd like to add is that on the last cutting of the year, I would like to have the 2 retention ponds cut so that I could pick up the trash in there easier. Now, it's all, from what I've heard, dead land. It's part of it's in a floodplain, that's why we got the retention ponds. But nothing can or will be ever built in there. But it was an eyesore, it looked like a slum. That's all I have. And I appreciate it. Oh, one other thing. I intend to keep cutting the grass. Because right now, I don't see anybody that can do it better than me. And me and my little push mower, we may putt-putt along, but we get her done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you for coming down. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions or comments for Richard?
Just to thank him
Alderman
for all
Franks.
those years of doing that.
Alderman Stevens?
would hope you people would do it too if you saw it.
We have it on the agenda later down, and I will discuss more about it, because the Oakwood Homeowners Association owns that, and they pay no taxes on it, nor do they, keep it up. So we can discuss that also a little later.
Thank you, Alderman Stevens. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
I don't want anybody to get sick. Oh, and if you want to pay me, make a donation to some charity.
We appreciate you doing that. You're a great steward of the community. Appreciate it. All right, moving on. We will address that a little bit, as Alderman Stevens said, that is on the agenda. So, Public Works unfinished business, item number 1, we have the stormwater utility implementation phasing, and that's been tabled. Brent, did you have any comment on that, or I do, but I'll let you first.
Now that COVID restrictions have been removed by and large, I will basically go back and put back in the packets for the July Public Works meeting, kind of pick up where we left off with this issue, provide the background information for the aldermen, and we can have a discussion. It'll be back on the agenda, or we can take it off the table in July if that works for everybody.
Okay. Any questions for Brent? So you'll bring that back in July? Okay. I'm sure we'll have a heartfelt discussion about that in July. Thank you. Item number 2, Public Works new business. Public Works update, Brent. Anything else you want to add?
Just a quick update for the council. Our long line striping, the contractor came and got into town the end of last week, started his work. He'll be done probably the middle of this week. So if you notice some nice shiny bright pavement markings out there, that's our long line contract work that's being done. That's part of the project that we are in work with City of Rockford and City of Cherry Valley. The contractor does all three and combine them. It saves each one of us a little bit of cost doing it that way. So they're working on ours as we speak. And that's the only update I have for Public Works.
Okay, item B, water service repair. Oops, I'm sorry. Alderman Porter?
Yeah, quick question. Are we redoing the crosswalk painting too?
The crosswalks, we do that in-house. The crosswalks will be done we shoot for the middle of August before school starts. So we will do crosswalks as we can fit them into the schedule, and we make sure that, like I said, they're done by the middle of August prior to school starting.
All right, moving on. Item 2B, water service repair at 429 West Madison Street. And Brent, you've given us a memo regarding that, and I believe that we have a resident here as well, but Brent, go ahead.
Yes, in your packet was a memo with some supporting documentation. Mr. Ferguson is here. He is the nephew of the property owner. We were notified of a water leak. This is off the memo. We were notified of a water leak at 429 West Madison Street on February 8th. The water department employees came out. We shut the water box off. And for those, when we say that, if you look at there was a map or a drawing, if you will, in the attachments, probably one of the last ones. Yep. So the last attachment shows you what the domestic looks like this. That shows you what a domestic water service. So you can see where the water main is, where the service comes in the shutoff at the property line, and then it goes on into the house. I'm going to talk about it. Hold the speaker down. So this is the actual box that was that came from this property, and this is what a new shutoff looks like. So if you look at is that on? All right. So if you look at the map here, this part with this flange on this side would be the part that would go out to the water main. So we're coming from the street up to the sidewalk. This is the Buffalo box, shutoff box that we referred to. This is the device. This is the key. So, and this is down, 5.5, 6 feet down on the ground. So at the top, we take the cap off the top, and there's a pipe that comes down that sits over this, and then our key comes down, fits on that, and that's physically how we shut water off to the properties. So when we have a report of a water leak, such as this case, we go out and we will shut this water box off. We shut this water box off, and if the leak stops, then that tells us, because we've closed this valve now and water can't go any farther, that the leak stops, then that tells us that the leak is on the private property side and it's the homeowner's responsibility to maintain. If we shut this off and the leak continues, then we know we got a problem between this box and the main, and that's the city's responsibility. So when we went out there and shut that off, and this is the actual one that came from this project. When we shut this off, then the leak stopped. So the property owner was notified that the leak was on them. They made arrangements with a plumber. I think they tried one, and then they ended up with Pearson at the end, or they got Pearson. Tried several. Okay. So it took about 3 weeks time period to actually get the leak replaced. We went ahead and left the water on so that the property owner could remain in the house until the work was done, because she did have enough water pressure to.
There was no water.
There was no water.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I was hauling jugs of water every day to her.
Okay. So ultimately then, when Pearsons came, they inspected the property, and they determined that it was galvanized, it had galvanized metal surface on service for their portion on the private property portion. We had potholed our side. We basically take our vacuum truck and we vacuum a hole down and determine it was copper on this side. So, and that's, if our part was galvanized copper, anything other than copper or plastic, we would have dug it up and replaced it then as part of this. We found it was copper, we didn't need to do any more work. So Pearsons came out, they advised the property owner that it was galvanized service, and they would recommend, or they basically insisted that it get replaced, as galvanized tends to rust out over time, and it's something that you would want to replace. So they ended up replacing both some plumbing work inside the house and outside the house to the box. And they started that work at the house and worked their way out, was my understanding. And when they worked their way out, they notified the city with this condition here that was wore out, and obviously with this side being the house side and this coupling fixture being worn down, they could not attach the new service to that. So then, at that point in time, the city came out and put a new one of these boxes in there, and then Pearson was able to complete their work. So Mr. Ferguson has sent in his letter request, which was attached. The total cost that was paid out for this work was $3,790 to Pearson's. Pearson's gave a further breakdown, and that is also attached. It was $3,140 for the work that was done on the outside of the house. There's a picture of it where the couple squares of sidewalk that were taken up, city is replacing that, because ultimately the box was replaced, the city's replacing that sidewalk. And then there's a couple pictures of the service itself. And like I said, Mr. Ferguson's here. He's requested, he did turn in a claim form with our insurance company that was denied. The copy of the denial letter is in there. And he is looking for some reimbursement for all or a portion of his costs. And it would be my opinion that based on where, with this box and the fact that when we shut it off, the water would stop, it's my belief that there was issues with the service line which caused the wearing of this fitting here. Therefore, my recommendation would be that the city not reimburse the property owner for costs associated with this specific leak. Then again, Mr. Ferguson's here, that if he wants to provide any extra.
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Good afternoon. So I don't know if everybody had a chance to read my summary that I submitted to the insurance company. I think they denied the claim based on there's no identifiable cause, nothing they could identify that caused this that the insurance should have to pay. To me, what it boils down to is we really have no way to say, did that valve fail first or did my pipe fail first, right? You've got the valve, which is good because I asked if I could have it and they said no. I've got my pipe out in my truck. My pipe's solid, right? If the water's running through that valve, to me, the valve broke, right? The valve clearly broke. The damage then is going to be blowing out that way, not backwards. So my pipe failing should not have run water backwards to do damage to that valve. I guess there's no proof, right? We have no way to say absolutely that valve failed first or my pipe failed first. So as a property owner, I guess, the reason I'm here, I guess I'll back up just real quickly. This is my aunt who's in her 90s and has no kids, so when something breaks at her house, she calls me. And I'm the one that paid for it also, so I'm the one that paid for this. So I believe that the city should pay for it because the valve was broken. We can't prove which way, but at the very least, if that's not the outcome, we should share the cost. The work that was done in the house was nothing wrong in the house. Pearson came in from the closest side of the house to save some money instead of going around. The water meter was on the opposite side of the house. So they said we can do it for considerably cheaper if we can come in this side of the house, and then we'll just relocate the water meter from this side to this side. So none of this work was work we wanted done, right? I asked that they if they get to the break, cut the galvanized pipe, rethread it, and couple to it, right? You shouldn't have had to touch anything the rest of the way. But Pearson said that the city would not allow that, the building department, that if it was galvanized, it would have to be replaced. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's where we ended up. So that's pretty much it. If you haven't read my summary, that goes through step by step of how this all played out. Does anybody have any questions for me?
So exactly what are you requesting as far as the city's?
I am requesting that the city pay the $3,790. The yard we fixed already, and the driveway approach, because of the water running, sunk in, and ultimately that's going to have to be fixed also. The sidewalk, Brent said that his guys were gonna fix.
Yeah. City Attorney has a comment?
I have two, actually. The first one is substantive matter. My advice on this would be the exact same advice I give every time we have a sewer backup claim. We have insurance for this. If the insurance company denies the claim, the property owner then would normally have to sue the city. The insurance company would have to defend the lawsuit. And they can either settle it, or if they go to trial and lose, the insurance company then pays the claim. If the council decides to pay the claim now, then we don't get reimbursed from the insurance company. It just comes out of the general fund. So it's the same advice I always give you with respect to a sewer claim. If you'd like to pay this claim, do not expect to be compensated from the insurance company. The only way that happens is if he actually files a lawsuit in this case, because they've already denied the claim. Which brings me to my second comment. I was just happening to look at the packet, and the denial letter is a denial for a lateral sewer pipe.
Yeah, I think that's a mistype or misquote from the, they know it's a water service.
They do?
I did talk to them on the phone. yes.
Okay, because it's talking about sewer pipe and PVC pipe, and
Yes, it is.
you don't usually use those. You can use PVC for potable now, but
Well,
not
it's-
in the city.
Yeah, this is new. This is a new poly line. The line that was put in is poly.
Okay.
We'll start with Alderman Porter.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you, did you have the add-on insurance that's available to cover that line from the house to the street?
No, just, as a homeowner insurance, you're saying? No, no. Now, this break also was on the street side of the sidewalk. It wasn't even, I mean, I guess we don't even own the street side of the sidewalk, right? We own from the sidewalk in.
Correct. And then in the case for the water line, for responsibility, it's the location of the buffalo box. Typically, the buffalo box is located on the property line, but it can vary a few feet either direction.
Right. So even, I guess the question is this too, right? Let's say, your pipe had to be replaced. Why should I have had to pay to dig up to replace your pipe, right? I hired the plumbers to come there and do that work. And they sat there while your people got called out, went back to their shop, got parts, came back and did the work. So I paid for all of that also, that I don't feel I should have had to pay for.
And again, and this is the first one of these, as far as the water service goes, that I've been involved with since I've worked for the city. So it's not a common occurrence, but the bottom line basically is we went out, we shut the water off, the leak stopped, indicating the leak would be on the private property side of the service responsibility. And then when the plumber found the condition, excavated out and found that condition, then we had to crimp the service on our side, the copper service on our side, to put the new box in, and we did that. And then, like I said, then his plumber was able to complete the work.
Alderman Stevens?
Well, since I was 14, I've been drilling wells and installing underground piping. Normally what happens is steel goes long before brass. When we do wells, we always install brass underground. I mean, the house is quite old, the steel's quite old. The steel would fail long before that brass box was. That looks more like wear from water flowage from the steel going to heck. So, if we start doing this for one house, we're gonna have to replace a whole lot of more, because there's a lot of steel out there underground. So, I really don't think we should start opening up this bag of worms to start paying for everyone to do this. Because like I said, brass will last a lot longer than steel will. And the house has gotta be, I don't know, close to 100 years or under, a little bit. So that's probably
Right.
how old the steel is underground. And
I've got the piece of pipe in my truck, and it's rock solid because they cut it. I mean, it's solid through. There's no rot in that pipe.
Where the,
I'm happy to show it to anybody if they
where
want it.
Brent, would you hold that up where the steel threads into the service side of that is there, correct, Brent?
Yes.
And the threads are all gone?
Yes.
But obviously, that has had water pressure on it. So the question is, the pipe that you have, is that the pipe that was in
Yes.
on the tail end of that?
Yeah, it was the pipe that was originally in there, yes.
Yes, so if you look at this with the threads on the inside, and I'll pass these around so everybody can see it. But for the service, for the threads and everything to be worn away there, the pipe had to be not there for the threads to be exposed to be worn as they are with the water. So at some point, something has transpired because there's a huge wear factor on that part.
I think Alderman Stevens brings up a valid point. I know when I sat in that chair in the past, we had many different claims. We had I remember a water claim on a service that was around the Christmas holiday. And actually, the council felt generous at that time, and they decided that it was the holidays and that they may go ahead and cover that. But I think you run into a dangerous precedence whenever you have it on, obviously, on one side, on the public works side, on the street side, to the main. When you have a failure, then there's no question about it, it's ours. Normally, as Brent said, when you shut the water off and you're able to determine that it's not part of the on the in the public right of way or over to the main, then that's how that's been determined. So, the council, this is up to the council what they choose, but I think the advice that Brent has given is sound, but that's up to the council. Is there any other questions? Alderwoman Frank?
Brent, you said the property owner should maintain this?
It would be it's the property owner's responsibility to maintain the service line from the shut-off box to the house.
You not to dig down there to find it?
No.
Because isn't it underground?
No, well, from what he said, so what he was saying is yes, typically when we come out for if there's a water leak, we come out and shut the box off. And if the leak stops, then the leak is deemed to be on the property owner past that valve, and that's the point of demarcation where the city's responsibility starts and stops. So we did that. In addition to that, we potholed the box. On the city side of the box, we dug down to confirm what material was on our side of the service line. It was copper.
Okay, so you're not saying that they're responsible to do that part, dig down and...
We dug down on our side and determined it was copper. So at that point, the property owner was notified that it would be his responsibility to take care of the problem, which is what he proceeded to do. Hence, when the contractor came out and did the excavation, dug up their side on that private property side, that's when they found the water box, the shut-off box in that condition.
And because it's on the service side of the Buffalo box, is what you're saying, that then that doesn't belong to us, correct?
Right, the box itself belongs to us. So when the plumber called, notified us of that condition, then yes, we supplied a new valve, a new shut-off valve, and we came out and put that and installed that to our existing copper service and made it to the point that then provided him the connection to connect to.
And I paid the expense to excavate that and backfill it for the city to replace that part.
Alderman Snow?
Brent, was the insurance company or whoever the claim adjuster was, were they actually given that piece of merchandise, the Buffalo box?
They weren't given it, they had pictures of it that was submitted as part of the claim.
And no different than what I mentioned earlier with respect to sanitary sewer claims and backups. Even if, and it seems like the failure may have been on the galvanized side causing the wear and tear on the valve. Even if there was a failure in the valve, that does not mean the city is legally obligated to cover any damage with respect to that. Because the only way we become legally obligated to cover these things is if we knew or had reason to know that there was a problem before it occurred and we failed to take action to fix it. Obviously, there's no way we could have known this. And that's done to preserve taxpayer dollars from going out and paying claims all the time. It's no different than, for example, slip and fall on a sidewalk. If the city has a means of checking on things and doesn't know there's a problem with that sidewalk and nobody's ever complained about it before and somebody slips and falls, we're usually immune from that liability because we're not the insurer for the entire city. Our duty is to fix what we know is broken and take care of it that way. So the insurance company would deny this claim even if the failure was in our junction box.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 2C, Willowbrook Drive parking. I think Alderman Stevens had turned in this before the committee. So Alderman Stevens?
Yes, this is down in the area by Chrysler Corporation where the PPG paint factory used to be, along the condos there coming out of the Oakbrook Woods subdivision. With people parking on either side of it, you have people parking there because there's not enough parking in the condominiums there. I've had people complain, and I've been down there myself, when vehicles are on both sides, you can't fit more than one vehicle through there. And the residents down there explained to me that when the schools are picking up children, it becomes even a worse problem with people coming down there. So I'm asking that we put no parking on the south side of the street with parking on the north side nearest to the condominiums. There's a lot of room over there, for those people to park at because they walk through their backyards to get to their vehicles. And it also, I'm sure, makes a hell of a problem during the winter when our plows try to go through there.
Yeah, I will say that's a good point. I have been out there and I have received complaints, and I've seen the same thing that Alderman Stevens points out. Not only does it present a thoroughfare problem, but I think it presents a public safety problem when you have kids that may be, coming off the bus, and they may let the bus pass by standing between the vehicles that are out there, and then, of course, you have a small roadway to go through, and they may come out into traffic. So it makes it very difficult. There have been complaints out there. I'd received complaints as well. So I would think that this would be a logical way to hopefully solve it. Alderman Snow?
So previously, I brought the similar situation, didn't actually have a curve associated with it, but on Whitman, which is down the street from where the pool is, again, we have apartment complexes and duplexes, a lot of people parking in the street, and the council didn't even make a second on the motion for no parking on one side of the street. So I don't know that if we start doing that, we're gonna have to go back and revisit numerous other locations as well. So
Did you support Whitman Street?
I did. I made a motion and nobody seconded.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Alderman Fleury?
Thank you, sir. Is there any regulations concerning our ability to say parking and no parking? Like, I mean, before we talked about signs, there was some, IDOT had some guidelines, but for this, is this our own decision, or are there any guidelines we have to follow?
No, parking zones are the city's sole discretion, is how they want those applied. I would, if council decides they want to go forward with this, I would do a quick review, because typically we make the no parking sign the side that has the fire hydrants on them, because since you can't park by a fire hydrant anyway, so chances are you're going to lose at least one stall because of a hydrant being on there. So typically, if there's one parking on one side only parking, we usually apply that on the hydrant side. But I'll do a quick review of the area in question to see which one can basically have the most stalls available to it, and I would think you'd want to utilize that for parking purposes.
Alderman Snow?
For the purpose of discussion, I'll make a motion to go ahead and put no parking on the side where the fire hydrants are located.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alderman Snow, a second by Alderman Porter. Discussion? Alderman Snow?
So my question is, and I'm not visualizing this particular spot, is it a lack of parking because of the condo doesn't have parking, or the people don't want to use? They don't have enough.
City Attorney has a comment?
I pulled up Willowbook Drive on my computer real quick. It seems to extend all the way from Chrysler Drive all the way down to Hazelwood. Are we talking the entire length of the road or some subsection of it?
Oh, no, I just put down here between Chrysler Drive and between Oakwood Drive.
And Chrysler?
Chrysler Drive, yeah.
Okay, is that the intent of the movement, Mr. Snow?
Yeah.
And Alderman Porter? Okay. Any other comments? Any other comments? Alderwoman Frank?
Thank you. Do we know how many spaces that would take away for parking?
To be determined.
Alderman Porter?
Do we know if this property owner owns additional property that they could expand their parking lot in?
Well, there's on the multifamily lot, I mean, there is additional green space towards the woods that we talked about earlier that's still on the agenda for tonight.
Any other questions, comments? Alderwoman Mulhall?
I was just gonna say for reference, there's 6 condos there and there's 14 spots directly for those, so. Are there only 2? Are these like duplexes? 2 in each building?
4 each building, I believe they have a 1-car garage.
There's not a lot of parking those for potentially.
And Mr. Porter asked if we could go after the owner. I would imagine that when they sold the condos and that, if there's an HOA or something, that would be used after.
It's actually an HOA. It's not a single owner like a developer. It's owned by all of the units as the members of the HOA.
Which is the same HOA that we're going to be talking about in a little bit,
Nope,
correct?
2 different ones.
Is it 2 different ones?
There's
That's
actually, there's an HOA, which is the Oak Brook Woods Homeowners Association, and there's a second one, which is the Condominium Homeowners Association. One of them is defunct, one of them is still around. The one that's still around is the condominium owners one, and actually I know the president, because he bought a bunch of the units.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second on the floor then, to go ahead and eliminate parking on with the hydrant side of the street, whichever side that may be. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. And 2D, TRC Annual Services Agreement for Landfill Number 2. Brent?
Thank you, Your Honor. Memo in your packet. Earlier this year, the City Council approved and the County Board approved an extension of the 2020 agreement. It's come time now that runs out, I think, the end of this month. So they have submitted their proposal for the balance of the 2021 Annual Services Agreement for Landfill Number 2, which includes statistical evaluation of monitoring well data, data analysis, groundwater assessment, preparation of the annual corrective action evaluation report, as well as operation and maintenance of the leachate landfill gas recovery system. I would recommend approval of the 2021 Landfill Number 2 Annual Service Agreement with TRC. This work is included in the landfill budget and paid for from account number 015-335-7900, and it is a split cost between us and the county.
Okay, motion by Alderman Snow. Do we have a second by Alderman Fleury? Discussion, Alderman Snow?
Brent, can you tell us what the difference between last year or the previous contract and this one?
There's not much difference. Hopefully this will be the last year for the error emission report. We've done some work there to hopefully remove that possibility. It's still in there for this year, but hopefully going forward that will be gone. Otherwise, the contemplation, it's about the same as what it has been for the last few years.
How about
And
the
that-
dollars?
And that estimated cost is $40,100. So again, it's a split between the city and the county.
Well, what was it last year as far as the cost?
I think it was, the budget-wise, I think it was 50. It was between 40 and 50.
Any other questions? Hearing none, then we have a motion to recommend the approval of the 2021 Landfill Number 2 Annual Services Agreement with TRC. The work is included in the landfill budget and paid for from the account number 01-5-335-7900. We need a roll call vote for that. All those in favor, all those that approve it will say aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Brereton,
Aye.
Fleury,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Thank you. Item E, PVC replacement wells at landfill number 2. Brent?
All right, again, memo in your packet, we received another proposal from TRC for the installation of up to 5 PVC replacement monitoring wells at landfill number 2. The estimated cost to complete all 5 PVC wells is $47,400. The PVC wells are needed to provide data for IEPA as part of the remediation process at the landfill. Basically, we have stainless steel monitoring wells out there now. We are picking up some metals in our samplings that we're doing, and it is our belief that those metals that we're picking up are coming from the deterioration of the stainless steel wells and not from the ground and groundwater around those wells at the landfill itself. EPA doesn't want to take us based on that assumption. They would like analysis and proof basically of that. So by installing these PVC wells immediately adjacent to close proximity of the stainless steel wells and doing side-by-side sampling for hopefully a short period of time, we can then provide the proof needed that indeed the metals of concern are coming from the wells themselves and not from the landfill, which will help us in the closure process at the landfill site itself. So I would recommend approval of the proposal from TRC in an amount not to exceed $47,700 for the installation of up to 5 PVC monitoring wells at Belvedere Municipal Landfill Number 2. The cost of this work will be split 50-50 with the county, and our portion will be paid from account number 015-335-7900.
We have a motion to that effect by Alderman Snow. Do we have a second? Alderwoman Prather, second. Any questions, any discussions? Alderman Snow?
Brent, how are we looking budget-wise for this as far as what was allocated for the landfill in that account number?
By doing this work now, we perhaps could go over what was budgeted. However, there's enough finances available to pay for it.
And obviously PVC is made of chemicals. Any chance that they'll pick up issues with the chemicals from the PVC that they weren't looking for before?
Well, as of right now, the answer is that's what we need to use. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, hard to say. Well, it's no matter what you do, ultimately they're going to find something. It's kind of like the water service. You started with lead, then you went to galvanize, to copper. I assume at some point in time they're going to figure out something that's bad with copper. They go to plastic, and eventually they'll find something with plastic. So it's always evolving.
Alderman Porter?
I'm just curious, this 50-50 split with the county, is this something in writing that's mandatory, or is this like a gentleman's agreement type thing?
It's covered by agreement.
It's actually an old consent decree done through the court system.
Regarding the landfill number 2, monitoring. Yeah.
Yeah, basically landfill number 1 was city-owned, maintained, and operated. We were on the hook for that one all by ourselves. That one's been closed, and we're in basically final maintenance of that site. The county one was owned by the county, operated by the city, hence the 50-50 split.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none, then we have a motion and a second on the floor for the approval of the proposal TRC in the amount of not to exceed $47,700 for the installation of up to 5 PVC monitoring wells at Belvedere Municipal Landfill number 2. The cost of this work will be split 50-50 with the county, and our portion will be paid from account number 01-5-335-7900. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Item 2F, we have a street closure for Kegel's Jack Rose Summer Tour 21 ride. So in your packet, we have a letter that was sent to Sarah, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So they're asking for the city parking lot adjoining the park for motorcycles to park, and they're asking for the road to be blocked at Whitney and Buchanan, and then just beyond the parking lot, if possible. They're going to have a band there from 6 to 9. They're not requesting anything else from the city. So I think that's it in a nutshell. Gina, any comments?
No, that's basically it. The bike tour, it has 15 locations throughout the Northern Illinois viewership of the radio station, and she just knows it's going to be a crowd larger than what she can house in her sidewalk area inside, and she's trying to be proactive and make sure everything's secure and there's not a pedestrian versus car issue. And then the Apollo's also taking part in it, because by visiting all 14 locations, then you get free concert tickets at the Apollo. So it's actually benefiting to businesses in town.
Alderman Snow?
And out of curiosity, is this something that Public Works would provide trash containers just so to control that, or is this something that the event holder would take responsibility for? Just thinking out loud.
You could probably consider it as a mini stroll.
You'll be taking care of anything that might. Okay.
Any
make that motion to
Okay.
approve.
All right, we have a motion then to approve this request by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Porter. Any other discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. And item 2G, we have a block party request for 429 West Hurlbut Avenue. And this is for a 2 birthdays and 1 graduation party, it looks like. They would like to block off Goodrich on the west side of Hurlbut Avenue and Madison Street. At the end of Goodrich, there are no sidewalks on this strip of Goodrich on the west side, so.
Make that motion.
It's in your ward, right?
Should be.
I think so. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Fleury. Any discussion, any questions? Brent, Alderman Porter?
I'm just curious, when you block off a road like this, I mean, the residents who live there could still get in there, right?
Yes, correct.
They're able to get around the barricades?
We stagger them.
All right, hearing no other questions, we have a motion and a second on the floor then. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Item 3, building, planning, zoning, unfinished business, there is none. Item 4, update, planning, zoning department.
You'll have 2 cases at the next city council. They're both for 817 North State Street, which is the Marathon gas station, going through a similar process that the Clark gas station down the street went through. It's an old gas station, it's grandfathered, it's zone residential. It's been zone residential since the first zoning map in the 50s. Don't ask me why. So they're rezoning it to business to bring the gas station to compliance, and then they want to add video gaming as well. So that went through Plan Commission at the June meeting. Zoning verification letters are still going strong. Historic Preservation did decide on their awards program, so that will be happening in October. There was a US Route 20 event with the scooter ride, so they stopped in Belvedere, treated them to coffee at Sips and Sprinkles. Spending a lot of time on Heritage Days, you know, it's just around the corner. Hopefully everyone's ready for that. Also, I know not all the aldermen check their email regularly. Everyone is invited to ride on the City Hall float. So if you plan on doing that and you plan on bringing family, just let me know so I can keep track and make sure there's enough seats for everyone. So, but it'd be great if we can get as much as the council on the float as possible. Buchanan Street Strolls is going strong. The June one was really hot, as Alderman McGee can attest to, but we still had about 400 people out there, so it was a good time. Poplar Grove has some minor variances going on. Still working on the vacancies for the commissions for historic preservation and city council. They're running in the journal. Had them on the chamber, have them on our website. I've talked to quite a few people about historic preservation. I actually expected resumes to be submitted already. And then the 2 big things coming up are the facade grants. Historic Preservation has their own facade grant that they do, that their fundraisers support, so it doesn't come out of the city's general fund. I got 5 applications for that. And then the city's facade grant is coming through as well. So those are both going to be reviewed by Historic Preservation next week. The city one had 15 or 16 applications. Between the 2, there's about 3 times as much money being requested than there are funds available for. So there's going to be some tough decisions to be made, unfortunately. But so expect those to Historic preservation only goes to historic preservation, but the downtown one will go to council after it goes to historic preservation. And then just an update on the past 2 years, from 2019, all of those projects are complete except for the B-Town Cooperative Building still has $800 to spend. He was gonna get a new window, having a very hard time getting a window. So he may do the back door instead. Wanted to do that over spring break, couldn't get a guy to come in to do the back door. For last year's, Taft Insurance did everything but the window because he can't get the glass. But his tuck pointing and brickwork maxed out his reimbursement anyway. So he finally submitted for reimbursement. That'll be in the next payables. So then the only outstanding project is the flower bin. And they had stalled because of the price of lumber skyrocketed. And you know that front porch and step with the wheelchair ramp is quite large. And it surpassed their budget even with the grant reimbursement. But I did notice that they are starting to work on their steps. So slowly she's getting that front work done. And then when she's ready, she'll submit for reimbursement on that. So the past 2 years, all the grant projects, you know, are either complete or moving forward as best as they can with the supplies available. So I wouldn't expect anything different this year.
Alderman Snow?
I hear that the Art Council is doing a large mural, I thought, for Heritage Day time. Don't murals have to go through zoning?
Murals do have to go through special use, and they will be doing that. Like most of their Heritage Days murals, it's a secret and they do the big unveiling at Heritage Days, and then they'll come after the fact for their special use. This location already has a mural on it. The mural is being changed, so it's very appropriate. But yeah, it's kind of hard to do a big grand unveiling when it's already been on city council packets and displayed. So they'll be coming after for an after the fact, which is kind of an agreement we've had with them the last couple years, as long as staff is to see it ahead of time to make sure that it's not, which obviously is nothing but obscene, but you never know. But it is a location that already has an approved mural on it, so council can't actually deny the mural, they can only deny the redesign of it.
And they, I think they were whitewashing the old one today. I think they were covering that side of
They
the
might have
building
been
today.
getting the building props.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's going to be very large, and they expect it to take 2 weekends to paint. So it'll start the Thursday before Heritage Days and go to July 3rd is what they're expecting.
Alderwoman Mulhall?
When would you be deciding for both of the facade grant programs? I don't know if you said that, sorry.
So they go to Historic Preservation next Thursday. Historic Preservation got moved because of lack of a quorum from Tuesday to Thursday. So Historic Preservation, that one just gets voted on and is done at that meeting. The facade grant goes to Historic Preservation because most of those buildings are landmarked, so they get kind of their quasi-certificate of appropriateness review that way. So that would be Historic Preservation on June 24th. So then it would go to the next Committee of the Whole, which would be July 12th, and then approval July 19th.
Okay. All right, item 4, are you done, Gina? Thank you. Item 4B, reappointment of Art Highland to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Gina, did you have any comments on that?
Art has served on the commission for quite a while, obviously between Keene Age Center, Habitat for Humanity, Plant Commission. You know, he's a very devoted citizen and a wealth of knowledge, especially on the background of property. So staff would be okay with him being reappointed.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Snow then to, for the appointment of Art Highland to the Belvedere Planning and Zoning Commission for a 5-year term ending May of 2026. Do we have a second? Second by Alderman Porter. Any discussion? I would just reiterate what Gina said. Art's been around the community a long time. He's certainly been involved in a lot of worthwhile events here and given his time accordingly, so, yep, thank you to Art. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item C, the flagpole requirement options. Gina?
Okay, so, before you use 4 proposed, amendments, 1 is just to leave it as it is, which is 1 pole with 3 flags, up to 3 flags. 1 is to keep the originally proposed language, which is 3 poles with up to 3 flags on each pole. Another one is to, I'm sorry. The proposed language is 3 flags, 3 poles, 1 per pole, so you still get a total of 3 flags. The third option is 3 poles with up to 3 flags on each pole, which would give you a total of 9. And the fourth option is to say a limit of 3 flags that can be any number of poles as long as the flags are maxed out at 3. So this way it can still be 1 per 3 or, 3 or 2, whatever combination you want within that, would be the 4 most reasonable amendments.
Okay, Alderman Fleury.
Make a motion for option 4.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor then for option 4. Any discussion? Alderman Snow?
And I had it originally marked, but any reason why you didn't want to go with number 2, with the 3 and 3?
I think the possibility of 9 flag might be a little cumbersome.
Do we think there's going to be that many people using that?
Well, that's the pleasure of the council. City Attorney?
Yep. If the council does approve this tonight, actually, I believe the other ordinance is at second reading. So you'll have to move to amend that ordinance at that point to effectuate whatever you do tonight. On item 4, if that's the one that is chosen, and I'm sorry, Gina, maybe I missed this the first time. I'd still have a limit of maximum 3 poles. That way somebody doesn't put up 4 poles and switch flags on you. But that's very unlikely given the cost.
You mean like keeping 1 pole empty and then
Right.
just swapping around?
Okay. So we have a motion and a second then on the floor to select option 4. Any other discussion? Not? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
And Mr. Mayor, for the clerk's purposes, this will not actually show up on the city council agenda as a separate item. We'll just make a motion to amend the underlying ordinance when it comes up.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Building department update? Yep.
Mayor, for the month of May, we issued 134 permits for a value of $1,300,000. 21 of those were in commercial, industrial, residential were 113. Currently, we have closed 38 property maintenance cases and currently have about 100 that are open. Notably, we have received building permit applications for Deer Hills, which hasn't happened in 13 years, so.
Kip, you said we'd had a permit for Deer Hills issued?
I issued one a couple weeks ago for a couple building their own house, and then Joe Connorino has bought, I believe, 12 or 15 lots in there.
Thank you. Any questions for Kip? Alderman Stevens?
I was gonna make a comment that Deer Hill subdivision, I thought we were actually collecting city taxes out there, but I now find out we are not collecting city taxes for that whole area out there, but we are providing city services, police, fire, public works, and we're not collecting taxes on those houses north of like Ned's Restaurant and the Smoking Coop. We're just being nice about it and not collecting any city taxes.
Well, it's partially correct. It's not that we're being nice about it, but in 2005, the city entered into an annexation agreement with Landmark Development, which was the developer out there originally. That property is technically not in the city of Belvedere. Pursuant to the annexation agreements in Illinois law, you can do that. During the term of the annexation agreement, that property is treated as if it's in the city for purposes of our ordinances, building code, zoning code, things like that, but we don't get the property taxes on it. If the commercial area had developed immediately north of State Street, call it south of the little bisecting creek there, then we would have gotten the sales taxes on that, but of course the recession hit and that commercial did not develop. So currently we do not get tax dollars on that, and that council knew that in 2005 that was a possibility, but they wanted to go ahead and start that development. At such time as the property becomes contiguous, in other words, next to the city, if that happens during the term of the annexation agreement, then we can start the annexation process to bring it within the city.
And in the meantime, then we have individuals that are going to be issued permits and to build out there. And the city will still be sending services out there, as Alderman Stevens said, water and sewer. And I guess my question would be, how do we entice, or if we can we entice anybody who is issued a permit or anybody that has a sale of a home currently there? How do we include them going forward, if there's a way to include them to make sure that they are part of the city moving forward? I think that's a legitimate question, but.
The annexation, by law, and it states in the annexation agreement itself, any owner of the property, including subsequent owners. So if I were to buy a lot out there, I'd be deemed an owner. Once it is contiguous, if it happens during the term of the agreement, they are required to annex to the city. The problem goes into actually chasing them all down and getting them to sign the documents. It's a timing issue. So they are required to do it. It's not a matter of enticing them to do it. They are required to do it if it happens within the 20 years. As far as forcing them to sign documents at the time of getting a building permit, no, we can't get them to do that. Besides, they're not the ones that actually own the property. It's the builder at that point that owns the property and really doesn't do it that much good. Obviously, one of the things we can do is something that the developer was supposed to be doing all along, is give information to every prospective buyer about the annexation. And in fact, the agreement requires the owner at the time of the sale to get a power of attorney from the purchaser so that the seller, the original developer, could sign the petitions on their behalf. My guess is the Landmark didn't do that, and they're, in some cases, 2 and 3 buyers ago already.
So the developer is the one who takes out the permit, and so the developer, does the city have any firm footing to be able to deny a permit unless the developer decides that he wants to, he's taking advantage of the city services, yet the city isn't having to be able to capitalize on any of the property tax money?
No. Not at the time of building permit, no.
No. So
that's in the underlying agreements that they have to annex when they get next to the city, but we can't require them to sign a petition at the time of building permit. That's not provided for an Illinois law nor the annexation agreement.
Alderman Snow?
And this, just for my own knowledge, being they're not in the city, do they pay the non-resident rates on sewer and water?
During the term of the annexation agreement, the pre-annexation agreement, they pay the rates as anybody else. Once that agreement expires, then yes, then they would have to probably pay the 10% surcharge that we charge for outside city limits.
Alderman?
And so the area of concern is this area, right?
Correct.
And
It's actually, if you look, it's the
To the right.
colored areas as well as a portion, here, I'll hit the other map.
Yeah, it's everything outlined in that
It's everything
black.
outlined in gray over here.
which is all this coloration. I got
Putting that white in the middle, because that's what's called Deer Woods too.
But isn't this area right, because we annexed part of the conservation district to get over to the distillery, correct? The conservation district, didn't they take this property kitty corner from there?
No, the Park District did.
Park district?
But kitty corner does not get us contiguous with the meaning of the statute, no.
Oh, okay. Does it have to be across the street?
You need approximately 300 foot of contiguous, there's nothing in the statute that specifically states it, but the case law that interprets it has approved contiguity if there's 300 feet of adjoining parts, of adjoining line or boundary. So it'd be it includes streets, yep. So that if we got to the south boundary there, that Rigaman Farm or the Ackerman Farm, that would give us 300 feet. And there's possibly one other way to do it as well. And we've had we've tried to have conversations with them, and they have not wanted to annex it to this point.
Just thinking out loud, because I know
Yep.
Good. That's a good point.
Yep.
Thank you.
Getting the Park District to annex that would be one path with one additional property to perhaps create that contiguity.
Anything else, Kip?
No, thank you.
Any other questions in that regards? Okay. Item E, Alderman Stevens had had this, we're back at the Oak Brook Woods. Alderman Stevens?
Yes, this is to go along with Mr. Wainwright. The area there, the retention pond and all the little creek that runs through there, the Oak Brook Woods Homeowners Association is not taking care of it. And if you'll look, I also included the tax records for 2019, and they don't pay any taxes at all. And I'm sure if it was owned by me, I'd be paying taxes and taking care of it. So I'm curious as to why not. They're paying taxes and maintaining it, and what can we do?
Gina, did you have any comment?
So that's two parts. One with the maintenance, that's always the catch-22. When you do a subdivision plat and you have outlots, the city controls it, then obviously the city has to pay to maintain it. So we usually say it's the homeowners association required to maintain it, to take that off the city. But then when you have a homeowners association that, you know, defaults or isn't active, then you're chasing down those maintenance regulations. This is not the only subdivision with that, and it's, I'm sure, not going to be the last. As far as the taxes go, I did talk to Jessica Mueller, the new county assessor, and she provided me, which I sent to Drella because it's legalese and he can understand it better. Within state statute, properties owned by homeowners association cannot be taxed, which was news to me. And they do that for two different reasons. One is so that it prevents public space from going on the back tax sale, which I can vouch for this. Happened in Poplar Grove a couple years ago. There was an outlot that was supposed to be parkland for the subdivision owned by the homeowner association. They went default. It was never put in the association's name, so it got sold on a back tax. Someone bought it to build a house, and chaos ensued for several years between the village and the property owner, thinking that they were buying cheap land for a house. So Jessica's actually going through a lot of the subdivision plats, finding out which properties were supposed to be outlots owned by homeowner association, contacting the association if their owner information is not correct, because sometimes they'll put it in someone's name or something, so then it doesn't get flagged, and explain to them that it needs to be in the association's name so it doesn't get taxed, and then it can't be sold on a back tax, and now we're not chasing down new property owners. So that's a good thing. The second thing is that it is not taxed because the logic behind it was that the houses that surround this green space are usually appraised higher because there's an amenity right next door to them. You know, their backyard's quantifiably larger because they're next to this green space, and they are assessed at a higher value than other properties. And since they're assessed at a higher value, they are paying more in property taxes, which helps make up for the lack of property taxes from the homeowner association lot. So those were the two reasonings behind it. But yeah, it is actually state law to not pay, which again was news to me. So.
But I think if they defunct the HOA, then they can sell that detention pond, just like they did at Riverbend. Am I correct?
Well, no, that was the problem at Riverbend. If that would have been in the HOA's name, it would have never been taxed, and then they couldn't have sold it off.
We've actually had that happen a couple times in the city since I've been here. One was where it was not in an HOA name, one time it was. In both cases, both of those tax scales got set aside by the court as a sale in error because it was common property that shouldn't have been taxed. And frankly, the people, if they'd known it was limited to a detention pond, would never have bought the taxes on it. So in both of those cases, the county ended up having to pay back all the money they received in the tax sales, and the county, I think, now owns at least one of those lots. Quick answer, yeah, Gina's general discussion of that statute is correct. That's the problem with having a condo association maintain these stormwater detention ponds, things like that. In the case of Oak Brook Woods Homeowners Association, they were involuntarily dissolved on Friday, March 11th, 2011. That homeowners association that owns this property has not existed for 10 years. So the land is sitting there in a name of a title or an entity that doesn't exist. Frankly, we don't have anybody to go after for property maintenance issues. There are things, of course, that we can do. They would include, unfortunately, in almost any scenario, us taking title of the property and maintaining it. One would be to go ahead and cut the grass, file a lien, foreclose the lien, and then we can title the property, and then we maintain it forevermore. Some of the more recent annexations that I took care of and that we processed through special uses or PUD, there's language in there that if the homeowners association defaults, the city can go in there and lien all the individual properties and force the homeowners to pay up. I have not looked at the Oak Brook Woods Association documents yet. They predate me, but my guess is it's not there because frankly that annexation agreement would have expired by now anyway. And I doubt it's in the special, if there was a special use, if we can check that. But I don't think there's even a PUD on that thing. I think it was straight zoning. So I doubt that those are there.
Alderman Snow.
So because it is a retention pond and generically speaking has no inherent value, I do see that it says the fair cash value is 0. So anything multiplied by 0 is going to be 0. So is that a fair assumption? Wouldn't matter who owned it or what. If it's 0, there's no tax dollars on something that even if somebody wanted to own.
That's an artificial 0 they put in there because it's a homeowners association owned property.
But the retention pond serves a purpose out there.
And there's a retention pond, there's a creek that runs through there, it's all floodway property, it was all not developable, which is why we got lumped together, and I think, we looked at it earlier today, it was what, 16, almost 17 acres, I think?
Yeah.
in size, so it's a pretty good chunk there.
I'll check the Homeowners Association Act. There's actually a state statute that governs these things. I'm not aware of anything that would allow us to go after individual property owners within the original association, especially if it doesn't exist anymore. But I'll check and make sure. But I'm not aware of any.
Alderman Porter?
Well, what about if the property gets so bad that, can you condemn it at some point, even though it's not a house?
No. When you think condemnation, you're thinking of in terms of a dilapidated structure. There's no structure on it. It's just woods and grass and weeds. What you do there is you take care of it and you lien it and foreclose the lien, which gets you to the same end result, but it's not a demolition statute you think of. That deals with structures. I'd love to use the Abandoned Property Act. We can't even do that because there's no structure on it. I should check that statute, see if there's a section for vacant land.
We do have sanitary sewer that goes through there.
Yeah, but the problem is any one of those the problem with the scenario is any one of those solutions, we're ending up with title to it, and we're maintaining it. When I say we're, I mean the city of Belvedere. When the entire intent was to have the homeowners pay for their own detention.
Well, and I think, obviously, the city isn't maintaining it. Dick Wainwright's maintaining it, thank you. And, but it is it is a concern and it is a blight, I guess. So if it looks like that annexation agreement, when it was drawn up, probably wasn't in the best interest because as homeowners associations go, if they go defunct, then the city has to deal with what's left over, the residue. And so that's something I guess.
I'm not even sure if there was an annexation agreement, because this is the land that was part of that lawsuit, where the city actually declined to issue a platted subdivision because of flooding concerns, and it went to court and the city lost. So there may not even be an annexation agreement in place on this one. It was already in the city.
Okay, so moving forward then with the maintenance, that's still outstanding, still an issue. Anybody want to weigh in? I mean, I believe that, the city ultimately, if there wasn't, if we didn't annex that, if the annexation agreement didn't include that, then actually, I think I was a part of the original council that denied that project to go, and they sued not only the city, but they sued the aldermen individually. And of course, then the council changed, and then they came back, and then that was built out there later. But regardless, here we are, and I don't know. I would think that we have to maintain that. Brent, did you have any comment?
We have 2 city parks now. Farmington, when Farmington was done, their common areas, their retention areas, those were all done, but they were done with us through a special service area. So all the properties within those subdivisions pay an annual fee, and that's what we utilize to maintain. So those common areas, our second city park, if you will, or our first city park, is owned by the city, but it's paid for, all the activities out there are paid for by the property owners. In this case, that wouldn't be the case. It would be something that you would, if that's the decision, if it ultimately falls with the city to maintain it, then that's just an additional expense with no additional revenue.
And to that point, I don't know if there's any way that, according to what I'm hearing, I don't know if there's any way out of that. I mean, either that or you don't maintain a period, and I don't know if the council chooses not to do that. I don't know how old Mr. Wainwright is, but I'm sure he doesn't want to spend the rest of his years out there mowing. Well, Alderwoman Frank?
Well, the sidewalk's owned by the city, correct? And there's some fire hydrants out there that should be maintained as well for the public safety. I think that we should make sure that we take care of the nuisance.
I would agree. Anybody else? Alderman Porter?
Well, that's more or less what I was gonna say too. I think we should at least take care of the part, if it's a safety issue with the weeds where somebody's gonna get hit by a car, you know, I think we should maintain it back far enough, you know, the city should at least keep it from being a safety hazard.
Alderman Snow?
So this is a retention area for the surrounding residential area, correct? For everybody in that area, generically speaking?
Well, there's a retention area, but it's a relatively small portion of the property in question. The majority of the property in question is wooded, with a creek running through it. We've got a sanitary sewer running through it. It's all floodplain property. So the detention is included, but it's a small portion of the overall size of the property.
So we, in most respects, wouldn't be very prudent for us to have a special service tax for that surrounding area to help facilitate the offset of maintaining that to some degree?
Well, you do have 16 acres there to work with, so ultimately, if you wanted to quote-unquote develop that or create a park, I'm sure there's all kinds of things that could be done with that, but those things come with a cost, and then you'd have to be able to identify how you're gonna pay for those expenses. But yes, there's a pretty good-sized chunk of property there that's there to work with, if you have the time and the resources to work with it.
But again, is that something that a service tax, I know we don't like talking taxes, but I'm just, want to make sure we're talking about it and get it out there.
Well, certainly, and you could structure, if you can go that route, and if that's even a possibility, then you could structure it to at what level you want to see those improvements made. So I'm sure if it's just bare minimum, keeping the grass and everything in check, weeds down, clearance is done, could be one level. If you want to put multi-use paths throughout the area or do some other kind of improvements, then you could ratchet that up if that's deemed to be even a possibility.
As everybody looks at me. That would require some research to determine whether or not it would be eligible.
So,
Special service areas do require court action and some other things as well, but I'd have to research that.
Again, just asking the question.
yeah, no. Theoretically, who would a special service tax then include?
That's one of the things you have to decide is come up with the benefit of properties.
If it would have been done at the time that the subdivision would have done, it would have been everybody that's within that subdivision.
Correct. And it wasn't. Okay. Alderwoman Mulhall?
Thank you. So if the homeowners association is no longer in existence, what is happening with the rest of the common property, assuming that there's no homeowner association dues, correct?
I assume nobody's collecting it, and I have no idea.
No
In fact,
idea
I don't even know
how
if there's,
other common,
I don't know if there are any other common areas.
There is.
I don't think there are any.
Yeah, there are. This is the one and the only.
Remember, it's two different associations. It's the condominiums. They have an active association. This is the homeowners, which is the rest of the
so that's
subdivision,
the only common area for that.
as far as I know.
So with a little bit more research then to be done regarding that, what's the council's thoughts then about until we get any information back? I think Alderwoman Franks had made the comment about every so often we should maintain that area. And it's pleasure of the council. Alderman Stevens?
Do we even have a tractor with a brush mower on it? No?
We have the ability, well, we can either rent a machine if we need to, or we have equipment that can probably do what's already been mowed previously.
Okay. Do we need any action on that, in that respect, or since essentially the city, nobody else is stepping forward, nobody else, I guess, owns it with a defunct association, then what do we need, what can we do as far, do we need action for that, or do we just inherit it?
Well, we can't just inherit it, unfortunately. What will, or maybe that's a good thing. I will do a little bit more research as to whether or not we would have any recourse over the homeowners, as in the original homeowners association, they are effectively stockholders, for lack of a better word, in that association. My recollection is we don't, because obviously they're not there anymore. It's like corporation goes belly up. It is a corporation, actually, under the Illinois law. So I'll check on that. And then it'll be up to the council to decide at some point in the future if it wants to obtain title to that entire parcel. We can simply foreclose weed mowing liens. I don't know that it wants to do that. It may just want to have Public Works 3 or 4 times a year drive a tractor down and cut the grass that's been cut so far and let it go, because I don't know that you want to own that property. I don't know that you want to park. I don't know that you want the liability associated with owning that property. Well, that's a decision for the council in the future.
And my point wasn't inherit the property, it was inherit the maintenance. Somebody's gonna inherit somebody's gonna do the maintenance. So, is that something that, the council wants to do, considering the alternative? Alderman Fleury?
Yeah, I think with the city attorney to be able to look into what our course of action are with those homeowners in that area, they can maintain and understand that it's, it's not city property and, someone needs to be responsible for it. But I think we have a similar situation in our ward where from Riverbend North, where I live, we pay homeowner associations and our retention ponds are mowed because of our payment. Then right across the street in Riverbend West, their homeowner association went defunct, so several constituents have talked to us about being able to mow their retention pond, and same thing, citizens have taken it upon themselves to mow that because it becomes a blind spot when you're trying to turn out of there. So I just think that if we just see what the course of action would have the homeowners, get their homeowner association back in place or whatever, because ultimately they're the ones that I think should be responsible for the area, because it's their common space. And there are other subdivisions who are paying those fees to have it mowed, and so like I said, I pay my homeowner association and have my retention pond mowed. So I would think it'd be the similar things for other homeowners, as opposed to, all the taxpayers paying for these people's yards to be cut. I don't think that's fair to the other taxpayers.
The last 2 times I looked at this, I want to update the research because I haven't in a little while. One was the Riverbend case, and in that one we could actually go after owners because it's built into the annexation agreements in Riverbend West. The other one's Wycliffe. There's that sign right on, I believe it's on Belvedere Road going north. That's actually on somebody's lot, and there's an easement in favor of the homeowners association that wasn't maintaining it, and they wanted to do something about it, and there's nothing we can do. If the home association is belly up, sorry guys, you own the lot. You're stuck with the sign. So it really does become an issue, but I want to update my research on that and make sure I didn't miss something or that hasn't changed at all.
Alderman Snow?
So Brent, just kind of related, Newburgh Road, technically we're responsible for Newburgh all the way out generically to the bridge, Shaw Road. And that being said, I think by ordinance, as it were, twice a year, Public Works is at least responsible for making sure the shoulders get mowed. Would this fall under the same kind of premise, because it's kind of vacant land, just like Galano Farms and all the other properties that aren't annexed in? It kind of generically falls under your purview to a certain extent, at least the terrace area and the sidewalk. So I think unfortunately we as a city just get saddled with more man hours and or a contract for the mowing service to increase another area to get mowed. Is that a fair assumption?
Correct.
Yeah, I think the concern, at least the obligation, I don't believe was as much to the detention area as it is to, the public right-of-way and the sidewalk. That would be more my concern, and anything visual out there that might make it risky for traffic, as Mr. Wainwright had pointed out. So that would be, I think, something that we should probably do. Whether or not the detention area, I agree with Alderman Fleury, that remains to be seen, and perhaps the rest of it as well. But I think at least probably 2 or 3 times a year, we go out and try and make that so that we don't have any sort of a safety issue with the sidewalk or any traffic.
And no different than just mowing long weeds on a private lot where they don't respond. You don't need council action for that. Public Works can just do that.
Okay. Any question, Alderman Porter?
Well, you said with no actions required. I was gonna make a motion that we just temporarily maintain this for safety, the safety part of it, you know, keep it safety, and then maybe pursue the other options, but at least temporarily keep the area safe and keep the fire hydrants clear.
You can make that motion, but it's not necessary. Like I said, we already mow grass on a regular basis for private properties that don't respond to our complaints and our summonses, and then we clean the property afterwards if it's appropriate, so.
Alderwoman Mohal?
Could someone just clarify exactly where we're talking about on here?
Well, if you look on the map behind Dan and Cheryl, in the light green down there at the bottom, there next to the brown, that white spot in the middle there, the big white oval shape, that's that white spot. That's the area you're talking about.
Right in here?
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about this.
Okay. Okay, so these are the houses that condos are. Thank you.
So there's about 16, 17 acres there total.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll move forward then. I don't think we need a motion here. I think we all understand. Is that correct?
If I find something, I'll bring it back to committee.
Okay. Under 5, other, A, an amendment of section 2-111 committees. So we had, the city attorney, go ahead, I'll let you comment on this. I know you had crafted this based upon our committee changes, so.
Sure. The mayor had, as you know, split up building, planning, and zoning into building and planning and zoning, effectively make sure that each alderman had either chair or vice chair on some committee. This arose after the discontinuance of the city-county coordinating committee structure. So all this ordinance does is reflect that change in our city code. Our city code named the committees. This just splits it up.
And just FYI, I did contact the county chairman, and I'd ask him about perhaps the city-county coordinating committee being reinstated in some form or fashion, whether or not, you know, it used to be on a monthly basis. I think probably quarterly might be more as needed, but I have not heard back from him yet, so I don't know where that's at. I don't know if he's going to present that or if he's when he will get back to me, but up until then, I thought we could go ahead and make this change, and then if the city-county coordinating committee was reestablished, then we'd go ahead and make a change back accordingly and address that. So the recommended motion is, everybody can see, to read motion to amend section 2-11 of the city code, 2-111 of the City of Belvedere Municipal Code, to modify subsection B1 to provide that there will be a building committee, a planning and zoning committee, and public works committee on the second Monday of each month, as set forth in the attached exhibit. Do we have a motion to that effect? Motion by Alderwoman Franks. Do we have a second? Second by Alderwoman Mohal. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Item B is the request for the purchase of the breathalyzer machine. Chief Woody is on vacation. Deputy Chief Wallace is here. Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first request before you tonight is a request to replace the breathalyzer machine in the patrol office. The police department is seeking authorization to replace the breathalyzer machine for the patrol office in the Belvedere Police Department. The current machine is approximately 20 years old. We attempted to do the research to try to find out exactly how old it was, and our information doesn't go back that far. Previous repairs have been made within the last 2 years. The company advised us that there was no more repairs that could be made to the machine. So the attached quote from Intoximeter is for a new exact same machine that lasted at least 20 years. The cost is $8,500. The quote is through the Illinois State bid. The motion would be to authorize the purchase of a new ECIR2 breathalyzer at a cost not to exceed $8,500 using funds budgeted in the FY 2020 or 2022 equipment line item 015-210-8200.
Okay. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderwoman Prather. Any discussion, any comment? Alderman Snow?
Yes, curiosity, obviously, we have a breathalyzer, but the county has a breathalyzer. Everybody's getting processed to the same location at the PSB. Is that a fair assumption? And could this not just be one machine that's used for both and share the cost? Just tossing that out there.
So that's a good question. For the longest time, well, not the longest time, at the very beginning of my career, we only had one machine that was available in the jail. The difficulty was that we had to separate the adults in the jail from the juveniles when they were arrested for minor drinking or otherwise. Zero tolerance as well. So what we ended up getting was when the new patrol office was built, we got a new machine that the city and county utilized for those types of situations. We also found that it was much more convenient for our officers when we were processing DUIs to have them available to us to do all of the processing of all of the offenses that they had when they were arrested for DUI. So our officers process them for DUI in our patrol office and then take them to the jail and don't use the machine in the jail. The county or the state uses that machine.
Any other questions? Hearing none, then we have the motion to purchase a new ECIR2 breathalyzer at a cost not to exceed $8,500 using funds budgeted in the year 2022 equipment line item 01-5-210-8200. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Then we have the item 5C, the lateral hire ordinance. Deputy Chief Woody. I'm sorry, Deputy Chief Wallace. I already promoted you.
I thank you. I don't think Chief Woody would like it, but.
And demoted him. Deputy Chief Wallace.
So in your packet, there's a letter to the mayor and the council about the lateral process that we're going through with the Fire and Police Commission. In a nutshell, we're in an era of free agency and law enforcement. The younger officers, because they're in this Tier 2 system for our pensions, they travel around from department to department looking for the highest paid departments to move to. In an opportunity to stay in line with what everybody else is doing, we're trying to create this lateral system to be able to hire these officers away from other departments. The current system that's with the Fire and Police Commission, it requires to have 2 years of service with any department in the state of Illinois. That is limiting us from getting these young officers from other departments. Other departments in the region are using this opportunity to change the rules and to have 1 year of service with any department that gets them certified by the state of Illinois, or to have reciprocity in place so that we can get them from other states and then have them certified by the state of Illinois and then be able to put them on the road. This will allow us to bypass the whole process of sending people to the academy, et cetera. it requires, because state law says that we have to have 2 years of service in the state of Illinois, it requires us to use home rule authority to change the rules to make it 1 year. So the motion would be to request to approve the ordinance authorizing the City of Belvedere Fire and Police Commission to adopt rules expanding the eligibility of lateral police officer candidates.
Motion by Alderman Snow, second. Second by Alderman Fleury. Discussion, Alderman Snow.
I happened to sit in on one of the last Police and Fire Commission things, and it did definitely seem to have an issue trying to get qualified, otherwise qualified candidates, and timing-wise, it can be very critical. So I would say approve this. I would also, and we'll make it after we finish this motion to do this.
Correct.
Foregoing.
Okay. Alderwoman Franks?
Could this be abused later down the road to say that we pick people out of state versus the ones that are in state because we have that ability to do that?
I don't understand you. How would it be abused?
Well, say somebody's from Illinois, but we choose somebody from Michigan because we have that ability to do that now. Would that not happen?
There's a rigorous, the process is already set up for the laterals, but it requires 2 years of service within the state of Illinois. There's a rigorous process that goes in place of the testing prior to, and we only take the very best candidates from other departments, whether they would be from within the state or without. Does that answer your question?
The lateral hiring process is almost the same as your regular process for hiring an officer. They have to test for it, give the references, go through psychological tests eventually and things like that. So the testing process is almost the same, the difference being you're taking an officer that has experience and has already been, at least in this case, certified someplace and can waive into the certification process in the state of Illinois so you save money on the training. But either way, you're going to have to pick who's ever at the top of that list. It does allow you to take somebody off of the lateral list ahead of somebody on the regular list, but you're saving a lot of money on training if you do that.
So basically, it's the experience and then you erase the boundaries.
The experience is valuable to the city and the police department because we don't have to pay for that 4 or 5 months of training. And additionally, we get an officer that's going to be on the road faster because they can immediately start the field training process, which would be shortened.
Alderman Porter?
Okay, I guess I would ask if it's possible to make a change on this, and I would say that we'd want to keep the 2-year experience, in my opinion. I don't know much about police training, but, you know, we want to make sure that we're not hiring a loose cannon out there or something, you know, and having that 2 years experience, at least we have some idea of how they operate in the field. So I was wondering if we could keep the part that says the 2 years, have to have 2 years experience, but change it to 2 years experience from any department anywhere in the United States, basically.
So the 2 years of experience is rather arbitrary. The officers in general go through, if they have a year of experience, they're through the probationary period. They've already completed that. If there was issues that were going to come up, it would come up prior to the end of that. Additionally, I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. Yeah, the FTO portion is significant, you know, because we can shorten that down and condense it to get them through that, and then they stay in our probationary period for an extended period of time, where we have the opportunity to terminate them if they're not making it. Does that make sense?
One of the issues the department's running into, and not just the department, but the Police and Fire Commission, Fire and Police Commission, in the current era, people don't want to be police officers anymore. The lists are shrinking. We cannot get enough qualified people to apply for the job. And so we're having to supplement that with, of course, reaching outside. right now, your police department is effectively down about a shift. And you need to replace those people relatively quickly, or you're gonna be facing a ton of overtime over the next 12 months. So broadening the scope to include greater lateral transfers gets those people on the road faster, hopefully decreases your overtime down the road.
And just to add one more thing, the background investigation for this process is very significant. Just to give you an idea, the very first lateral list that we did under the original rules, we had 4 people that applied from other agencies, and we didn't take any of them because they all came with baggage. In this particular case, we have officers that we know from other departments that have come with references. They have more experience out of state. They now work in state, but they don't have 2 years of service in state, so it doesn't meet the criteria. So we're trying to make the rules so that we can get these young officers that are already through probation, they're quality people, and they're young enough that we're able to mold them the way that we want to do things at the Belvedere Police Department.
Alderman Fleury?
I think you already kind of mentioned that, Chief, but what I was going to say is just to summarize, right now, as it's currently written, we're missing out on highly qualified applicants because of kind of arbitrary rules here, and what it's going to do is just kind of level our playing field to be able to go out and get those qualified applicants. They're still going through the same rigorous backgrounds. You're still going to hire people that are going to do us proud for Belvedere. It's just that right now we're missing out on them, but by changing this language, we can actually get those folks, and it actually has an opportunity to save the city because we don't have to pay for all that additional training. So instead of waiting for a brand new recruit that has to go through police academy and all these other things, they've already trained. They just don't have this arbitrary 2-year deal, but they have, like you said, backgrounds from another state or come highly qualified or highly recommended from other departments.
That's correct. And in this particular circumstance, they've already had 2 previous background investigations that we're able to view, and we would do our own.
Thank you.
Alderman Snow?
So, in looking at the ordinance, the last actual paragraph that talks about the lateral transfer from out of state, it does talk about the out-of-state repository. I'm assuming there are some states that don't meet that requirement, and could you, by chance, just give us a couple of those, just so we have an idea, or they really every state in the union is recognized by Illinois?
I know that there are some states that aren't accepted by the Illinois Training and Standards Board. I can't tell you which ones they are because it seems kind of arbitrary which ones they choose as they go along. They send all of their transcripts from their state, their department, and then the state themselves decide whether or not they meet the requirement.
So they have to, the applicant has to get a letter from the state saying that they meet the requirements? Is that a fair assumption, or what's the process there?
Correct. They have to apply to the state for certification by the state, and there are times when the state of Illinois says you almost meet the certification. You have to go through 40 hours of firearms, or you have to go through Illinois state law, et cetera. And then once you've passed those, then you would meet their criteria.
All right, any other questions for Deputy Chief Wallace? Okay, hearing none, then we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the ordinance authorizing the City of Belvedere and Fire and Police Commission to adopt the rules expanding the eligibility of lateral police officer candidates. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. And then also, there's a second part to this, Deputy Chief Wallace.
Thank you. The second part is we request a motion to waive the layover requirement for section 2.87G. And that again is because of the 2 officers that we have kind of waiting in the wings. If we can get them through this process quicker, that means they're on the road quicker, and we're reducing overtime, and we're getting these young officers out on the road as fast as we can.
Do we have a motion to that effect, to waive the 2-week layer? Motion by Alderwoman Mulhall, second by Alderman Porter. Any discussion? All righty, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then, 5D, E, and F. So these are appointments regarding the library trustee, to new library trustee. We have a letter here from Sue Holmes. Everybody's probably read. Take these, I guess, one at a time. The appointment of Gail Stelton Pole to the Ida Public Library Board of Trustees. Do we have a motion to that effect? Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Porter. Quite simply, these appointments, like some of the other ones, are very hard to find individuals. They're very hard to find citizens that are interested and that want to serve. So with that being said, is there any questions regarding this appointment? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. The reappointment of Donna Donato to the Ida Public Library Board of Trustees. Same thing being said, take a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Fleury. Any discussion regarding this appointment? Again, there isn't anybody standing in line here, so. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passed. And the reappointment of Dawn Brooks to Ida Public Library Board of Trustees. Do we have a motion to that effect? Thank you, Alderman Snow. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman McGee. Alderman Snow?
And just a heads up, because I try to attend these
I
meetings.
know you do.
I'm sorry?
I know you do, yes.
So both
you.
these, the last two people have been very good about attending and participating, so.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Makes it better yet. Thank you. All right. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion passed. And then item G, we have an executive session pursuant to Section 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss the purchase of lease of real property, including the discussion of whether a specific parcel should be acquired. Do we have a motion to go into executive session? Motion by Alderman McGee, second by Alderwoman Prather. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor will, when their name is read, signify by saying aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
9 in favor.
If you give me a moment, I'll get us off the TV so that we can.
Okay.